Welcome to Membership Voice. I'm Kero O'Shea, the coordinator of The Voice and host for this evening's webinar. A very special welcome to tonight's guest speaker, Candice Olivier from the Gold Coast Passport Rotary Club. Hi, Candice. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Fine, thank you. But it's important for me at this stage to acknowledge the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm hosting tonight's webinar. I acknowledge the strength of their continuing culture and offer my respects to elders past, present and emerging. But at this stage, I'm delighted to introduce Candice Olivier, a changemaker and visionary and the charter president of the Gold Coast Passport Club, to tell us about the ongoing success of Gold Coast Passport Rotary. Over to you, please, Candice.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which I'm on, the Yingambay people. Good evening, everybody. Some familiar faces on the Zoom tonight and a couple not so familiar, but hopefully that's not the case at the end. Kara, thank you very much for inviting me to speak this evening on the topic of the Gold Coast Passport Club. The hype around the club hasn't yet quite finished, but definitely we saw a lot of people very interested in the model in the first year of chartering, and it hasn't changed, which is a really good indication that it is possibly a model for more clubs to have a look at moving forward. And you know, obviously the amount of success that we've had both in the public eye and within the Rotary family as a whole, both here and abroad. The idea of the Passport Club was actually pitched to me by a now mentor, the past District Governor Andy from District 9640. And he's actually been an incredible mentor and a leader in this space. And I think the biggest difference to me and to this club has been the fact that he's been very supportive of the disruptive personality traits that I have. Kara and I were speaking just briefly on it before we opened up to everybody. Because I'm a strong believer that in order to create change, you do need to be a little bit of a disruptor. So it wasn't without a few slaps on the wrist in the first 12 months. Upon meeting Andy and having my first exposure to Rotary, if I'm honest, from an in-person perspective and not from just a general opinion, community opinion, was that he invited me to attend his Rotary Club meeting in Burleigh Heads. And I absolutely loved it. The people were amazing. However, my concern was with regards to the structure. So something that I found very difficult in my journey, I've been volunteering for 10 years, is the need to be on a register and to have the commitment, say every week or every fortnight, where there isn't enough flexibility for individuals like myself to still entertain an entrepreneur lifestyle and still being able to commit to being in service. I am very lucky that my traditional business is something that I managed to convert into being a social enterprise, so I still have that positive impact there. But for a lot of the individuals, you know, my friends at the time, it wasn't an option for them to come volunteering every Tuesday or every Wednesday, let alone to commit to the meeting. So after I attended the Rotary Club meeting, Andy and I had a discussion, which was further to our initial discussion with regards to the flexibility of formats, how Rotary clubs could operate. But I think it was very important for me to have an experience of what a traditional club looked like and what the expectation was. And moving forward, we had a discussion with regards to starting a passport club style. Now, what we had a look at, and I think this has been a great rhythm for success, is one, where were the weak points within Rotary? And more so having a look at from my outside my outside opinion, not having had that much exposure to the internal operations. Flexibility was one. And, another big one was demographic. If I was going to commit so much of my personal time to an organization by doing good, who would be the leaders by my side, who would be the mentors, and who essentially were going to become my new friends and family? And I'm a really big believer that we do need to have a mix in demographics, because there's so much to learn from individuals that have been in the space for 10, 20, 30, 50 years. But there is also a huge benefit of individuals of a similar demographic coming together, because they're forming these lifelong friendships. And when I've heard stories about current Rotarians that have been in part of clubs for 20 plus years, they have formed such beautiful friendships because they did enter into the space when they were in their early 20s. Or roundabout, if they hadn't come through, a Rotaract or exchange program or something of that nature. And I felt really passionate about that. I was new to the area in which I was living in. And it all came together. Putting in place the idea of being able to volunteer alongside individuals that were of a similar demographic and in a similar space within their career. We decided to form this passport club, focusing on its marketing, looking at startups, entrepreneurs, and younger business owners. And in saying in younger, our club markets to a demographic of under 45. I want to make it clear that we don't discriminate against anyone that is outside of that bracket. It's, having been exposed to, as I said, the weaker points of current Rotary clubs, and having a look at their pain points of being able to attract a younger demographic. I made a pretty strong point in the beginning that our marketing material was only going to look at nurturing that demographic to see whether it was going to be a viable avenue to pursue. The concept of the Passport Club offers flexibility, but there are definitely really strong pillars of the Rotary organisation that we have been built upon. So just giving some clarity on that, our Rotary Club has flexibility in the fact that it only meets once a month. It does meet in person. And obviously when we were not allowed to have gatherings, we did convert to being online. But the structure of our club is once a month. It's the last Tuesday of the month. We meet in person at my business venue, which is a creative co-working space. And it runs for about 2.5 hours. So 6 for a 6:30 start and finishes around about 8:30. During that club meeting, we do follow traditions. We welcome the president in. We present on topics with regards to what volunteering opportunities are upcoming. We discuss projects that are in Notion. And what we have found there is been a couple of amendments to the club in order to fine-tune its process to be as successful as it was. Because we started to recognize things that we were pulling in from traditional clubs, where there was quite a lot of expectation on individuals to be 100% committed across the board of all projects, of all volunteering, and to have, this almost 100% attendance rate. And we started to feel the pressure of the individuals and started to recognize that if we were going to be successful in attracting a younger demographic than what Rotary has based its statistics on the club's notions, and especially having a look again as well as getting a fine-tuned mix between the gender as well as the demographic, that we needed to make these little changes as we've gone. And I think we've just hit rhythm, 2 years in, where we have broken up our clubs into committees. And I can speak a little bit more on that. But for the sake of our meetings, when we all get together, we follow, about an hour's worth of format. And then we actually break out into committees. So members have been divided into sections of operation, if you like. that all do work together. But for that last hour of the meeting, that's the team coming together. In the first hour, we do go through, on a basis, we update the rest of the club as to what is happening. By month, we have a guest speaker that's coming in. Our club, I know, passport clubs can be formatted in a couple of different ways, but we have three main focuses, which are youth, environment, and homelessness. So our guest speaker is from one of those organisations. It's on I suppose, fairly rare occasion where we will invite somebody that's outside of one of our core focuses to speak. Usually it's because they're making moves within our local community and need the extra support. But I think not to dilute the club, we're not confusing the members by introducing too many things. So just having those three core focuses, breaking the clubs into committees, allowing the first part of the meeting for everyone to be updated, and the second part to be a working bee for us has been really successful. Another indication of the success in the club, I think, this passport notion is allowing this further flexibility with the club members to be a part of other clubs and other club projects, and for our club as a whole to be a part of other projects that other clubs in our local area are a part of. So working more as a conduit to existing clubs, bringing in a different set of skill sets, and that's basically due to the demographic. The initial intention was that the Passport Club had this demographic and ideal audience of being freelance entrepreneurs that would travel around the globe on a regular basis, and that they would be able to connect with clubs. It's no news to anyone that all of that was sort of shut down pretty soon. Our club was chartered in 2019, so we didn't really get a lot of a runway to explore the path that we had intended to, but we have pivoted like most. And now, encouraging those individuals to spend more time helping out other clubs, and also to reach out to other clubs that are international. We've had a great deal of success in that. We have even, just before COVID-19 hit in, I was one of the first members of the club to really explore that notion of a passport club, how we saw it, being able to travel the globe. And I spent 2 months in India and went to a club in the region of Goa, so the Panjim Club, and had a beautiful experience there. And upon return, COVID had just started to kick in. So I actually partnered with them. Our club partnered with them and another club in Bangkok. And we were able to successfully get a international grant, foundation grant, that was put together to help out a hospital over there. So we have, sort of throughout the pivot of what we intended to do as a passport notion, been successful in reaching out to clubs abroad and clubs locally to band together to create more of a positive impact. The other thing that our Passport Club focuses on is really the beginning notion of what Rotary was, and it being a networking environment. It's all fair and well to focus on the service of the good, but at the end of the day, we're asking individuals to dedicate a fair amount of their time towards the administration of projects, and then to attend in-person projects to have that impact, that we felt that we needed to start to give back to the individuals, because it started to appear like it was a more take rather than a win-win-win. And we started to introduce a number of different avenues for our members to be highlighted. So, obviously the Rotary Global Rewards are a great one. I'm not too sure how often they're actually used, but we found that within our club wasn't really enough of a bonus to them. So we wanted to show thanks, and we wanted to show them how grateful we were. So we started to introduce a couple of different things. So the Passport Club meeting once a month is for our meeting. We then introduced a second meeting into the month, which is a social gathering. So our meetings happen on the last Tuesday of the month. Our social gathering is the second Saturday of the month. And we have put it to the club to put their suggestions into a jar. And at the meeting, we'll pull it out and we'll create an event from there. And it could be anything from going for a local hike to playing cricket on the beach to some of our members live in apartment buildings, so all meeting there to soak up the sun next to the swimming pool for an afternoon. We also introduced a workshop a month. This is a fairly new thing, so I'm hoping that you'll start to see them come out because they are recorded, and we'll be pushing them out for all Rotarians, where it's a professional development. So having a look at more of a skill set that we have or that we would like to learn that can be shared with a wider audience. Again, just adding that little bit more of sort of vocational, professional development into the club. And these things look like, how to effectively use Zoom, how to use, simple graphic design tools like Canva to create social media posts, how to use platforms like MailChimp, for example, to send out newsletters. And, in doing this, we are educating our club members and we're adding that value back. The last thing that we have introduced, which has taken about 10-15 minutes at our meeting now, but we've really seen a great deal of interaction from it, is that we have a member spotlight. So for 10-15 minutes, as I said, of one of our club meetings, we give the floor to one of the members and they get to pitch to us who they are, who they really are, and what they do for work. Because as those environments, we've all been to breakfast, lunch, dinners, and anything in between the meeting, you are getting to meet the people in your club, but you're not really getting to understand, why they have decided to join Rotary, what makes them show up, what they really want to get out of it, how it makes them feel. And then on a personal level, what they do for work, how they do it, where they struggle, are they, putting their hand up because they're looking for further collaborations? Are they interested in networking with people that might not be in their immediate networks, but they know might be in others? So it's a really interesting period of our meeting, because opening the floor to an individual to have this a short period of time where they can be vulnerable with the club allows us to see them as a human being. And, when we intend to, we spend a lot of time with them, but when we intend to spend so many more years with them, it's been a blessing to have them open their hearts and open up their, grand ideas of, how they want to change the world. And we can keep these, in the back of our mind for when we see opportunities, and we can showcase them. And I think from a leadership perspective, that has probably been one of the most positive changes that we've made, because we are giving gratitude to the members and really acknowledging their career paths and looking within our Rotary network of how we can help them further, which it empowers them. And I think that's why we have had such a great rate in terms of membership growth and retention, is because we are really focusing on the give back. And coming back to the passport notion again, it's having a look at the demographic of our club, which is sort of around 33 is our medium age. Those individuals are well traveled, or still have the intention to travel. Most of them have got young families, or they're sort of waiting out a couple of years so that they can hit the globe a little bit more before they settle down. And they want to be in a space where they can continue to give back. And there's no better organization than to really lean into the Rotary family and utilize the skills and network to do good around the globe, where you're going to be welcomed with open arms and a warm heart, and you can be working on projects that you're really proud of. The club itself, when we formed, or how we formed, was after I met my lovely mentor, Andy, who's on this call if no one's met him before, which I would highly doubt, because he's a little mover and shaker. We sort of band together and, thought about how we were going to make this possible. And I hosted a series of information nights, at my business. And then we marked them as a networking event for people who wanted to do good in the community. I think sometimes, acknowledging the label as the forefront and the driving direction can be a little bit scary for people because, I was very naive when I had the exposure to Rotary. I had only, heard opinions, and it didn't have a reputation of an organization that I was best suited for. And, the reality is they couldn't be anything, further away from that. I think it's the perfect organization for individuals that are moving through the stages of their career and wanting to make change and do better business, as well as become better humans and learn how to do that and build a network or, build this support system around them of friends and, then become family who they can spend their weekends and afternoons with doing things that they're both interested in, bringing like-minded change makers together who also have a really strong determination to be successful. It's the perfect recipe. So after marketing those events as, sort of networking events for change makers, still branding it, for Rotary, but it not being, the plastering it everywhere. Rotary is very good at getting their branding out there, which is amazing. When we've learned to use it in a way in which it's getting its recognition, but there's a number of different other tactics behind it where we're appealing to people to be, fun and creative and dynamic. That we were able to successfully sign up 20 people who, were super excited to get started on this mission. I'm glad they were excited because I didn't have that much exposure to Rotary, so I was, scared. To say the least, just navigating through the processes. And we successfully chartered, and we've grown our club to be 36 members. It's been a really interesting journey. We were very lucky in our first year to gain a lot of public exposure as to what we were doing and how we were doing it. And I was president for two and a half years almost. And it's now that I can sit back and realize that, the success of our club is because we are open-minded to collaboration with others. We don't have that mindset of these are our projects and we don't want help from other people. And we want to get all the recognition and, it's our club first. We're very happy to be in the background and sort of just be the driving force behind, and having a true acknowledgement to our members themselves and asking us as the board of the club, how we can give back to the members who are giving back so much to the community, local and abroad. And, having witnessed and acknowledged and navigated that process for such a long time, I definitely believe it's what is the standout point of us as the Passport Club. The flexibility is a no-brainer, I think, in these days. I think if clubs are still strict to their one meeting a week and are still trying to pull in a younger demographic of somebody who has a career, whether that's a 9-to-5 or whether they're running a small business, it's just not possible. There's such a demand on individuals these days to, work longer hours, that the sheer thought of giving back, just a couple extra hours in the week that you just don't have time for, can be quite scary, quite daunting. And I think with people that lead with good intention will do it for a little while, but the retention is going to drop because they'll soon realize that it's becoming a strain on, their career or relationships, or they don't have time with the kids. And, I acknowledge little bits and pieces like that. We welcome kids to the meeting. They're quite delightful, actually. They've been teaching us quite a lot. Sometimes I feel like we've turned the demographic around quite quickly because we're being taught at our own meetings how to run, TikTok videos and things like that. So I think it's to be inclusive and to acknowledge the wants and the desires of the individuals in which we're trying to attract, because it's not only just to give back. It's to be a part of something bigger. It's to be part of a family. It's to be seen. It's to be acknowledged. It's to get credit. It's to be in a position where you are empowered to be a change maker. You're empowered to be a leader, and it doesn't have to be this sort of leadership style from the front, because things are changing, and the individuals that we have in our club are very much mixed in types of their personalities. They're not all extroverts. A lot of them are introverts. Therefore, they need to be acknowledged a little bit different. They don't like to be put on the spot, but they like to get a pat on the back. And how do we do that? And, I suppose we take it more so from, business managerial perspective of, how do you reward each of the members in the club for the good work that they are doing? And, we are creatures of habit. The more we're told that we're doing a good job, the more that we're seen and acknowledged, the more we want to give back. And, that is just the reality of, being a human creature. It's not always about, giving back out there. It's also, how am I being witnessed for the work that I'm doing? And it's kind of a difficult thing, because for the first maybe 18 months, I really struggled with that because of tall poppy syndrome. But realizing that the more we highlighted the individuals and the good that they were doing, the more they were spreading that message out, which was helping us in our marketing, because we didn't really have a big marketing budget. So, the more we invested into highlighting the members and the projects we were working on, the more those individuals and founders of those projects, if they weren't created by us, were being pushed out, and we were getting this wave of advertisement of all the good work that we were doing, which had this circular notion of making the club feel good. So we wanted to go out more and say, okay, what else can we do now? What else can we become a part of? And learning very quickly in the early stages, being such a flexible club, that we needed to implement some really good processes internally to ensure that we could project manage all the things that we were doing without the hundreds of emails landing in your inbox every day, or text messages and calls to be followed up. People are walking into a board meeting, and then all of a sudden they get a call going, oh, did you do that flyer for the cake sale on the weekend? It's not our priority, but utilizing the platforms that are available these days and implementing some really good tech stack to project manage has been an absolute blessing for us. Even so that when we went through that second wave of COVID, we had a number of our members who were living on the Gold Coast, but were actually from interstate or from abroad, and with the uncertainty had returned. And they're still part of our club because they can still contribute. They can still contribute by, doing snippets of our marketing, writing copy for our social media pieces, creating graphics, being in charge of the website updates, being in charge of reaching out to other organizations. So, this Passport Club for us is just how can we utilize being as flexible to the benefit of the members and the community. So I think what I might do, because that's me for 25 minutes. I've done a couple of these speeches, and some have been long and some have been with presentations. But I think we're all on this call today because there's a real curiosity of what is this Passport Club? Do they pay money to be Rotarians? I'll touch on that. Yes, we do. We pay full dues. $360 a year. We do have some subsidies if people have what I call shacked up with somebody else in the club. Gotta stop saying that. If they're a couple, there are some subsidies, and individuals in our district for this year, I believe, have a reduction in fees. But the general rule of thumb is that we pay full dues. We're a Rotary club, just like the ones that you all belong to. And our intention is to continue to grow the club. I was pretty ambitious in my first year, saying I was going to get to 100 members. Then I realised I was collecting people and not soft toys, so I reverted back to a healthy number of dedicated individuals. But as I was saying, I've done a couple of these, and I've come to learn when the environments are intimate like this, and online from people from all walks of life, and been part of Rotary for such a long time, that it's really in the Q&A when the questions start coming that we all get to understand, where are people not understanding what is a passport club. And it's also really good for us because we get to take that information as feedback, and know how to better market the club itself, not only to existing Rotarians, but obviously for potential Rotarians out there. So if it's okay, I might just open to questions.
And I think I'll ask Johnny Dryden to switch his microphone on and put his question, please.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Kira. Hi, Candice. Johnny Dryden here. I'm the district membership chair for 9930 in New Zealand. And we know that we've got to start some new clubs, and we know that there's certain areas of our district that is growing. I did put it in the chat box here. How many members did you actually start with? And I mean the seed, obviously there was you at the very start, but the seed members that went out and obviously got enough to form the club. What did you start with originally, please?
So when you say the seed, so the first members that we were able to attract before we got enough members to charter?
Yeah, that's right.
We had about 12.
Okay.
So we had 12 that I had, I suppose that I had enough time with, that were putting their hand up saying, yes, we're definitely a part of it. And then there were a number of others that sort of were sitting on the sidelines going, okay, well, I'm not really sure what it's all about. And because we hadn't formed it, obviously we hadn't had, anything to showcase them. So after doing the information nights, we attended a couple of other Rotary clubs. I was very new to Rotary as well. I sort of went in guns blazing. I didn't have any experience with Rotary at all. But I had done a lot of research, and I had a look at a couple of projects that really caught my eye and sort of pulled on my heartstrings, that I was able to showcase to any individuals that were sort of sitting on the sidelines. And I reached out to presidents of other clubs or leaders of other projects and asked them to be in environments like this to explain to us, how have you got to where you are? What's that process? What are the things that you've really enjoyed about being, a part of this organization? So, as we were chartering and we had a couple of interested members, we still needed to get a few more. And I think that really did help us. And then we were really lucky to charter with 20 others, but it scaled very quickly. We chartered with 20, and I think within the next couple of weeks we had another 6 or 7 to go. So yeah, definitely. We'll have 36 this month. Definitely a key thing for us was introducing members to other Rotary clubs, and I've done it a couple of times in our district now, and actually, sorry, for other districts, where I've been invited to speak to a potential Rotary club and have a chat to those members and sort of push them over the line or give them a gentle nudge. With a little bit of storytelling, just giving them an idea of what I've really enjoyed being a part of this organisation, because it is quite difficult as a charter president, especially if you've not had a lot of exposure, because you don't really know what you're getting yourself in for. And I would say even for the younger demographics, if they've been Rotaractors before, moving into Rotary, I mean, obviously the age demographic and lots of things have changed, but let's just say they were a part of a Rotary in a different format prior to starting a passport club, that they don't have all the answers to the questions, and you won't for a while. It's just about navigating that storytelling of what intention you have. And I'm also a strong believer that if you are focused on just a few causes, or have a look at, one or two sustainable development goals that your club would like to focus on, that you will have a lot more traction because you're not diluting it by trying to save everybody.
Thank you, Candice, and thank you, Johnny. We have another question from New Zealand, this time from Elaine Mead. If you could please, Elaine, put your question.
Thanks, Kira. Hi, Candice. We actually met when you came over.
Sure did,
Christchurch. Yeah. So nice to see you again. Just in that initial group of charter members, that initial 20, did you actually have any existing or previous Rotarians in that group?
We did. Our honourable member was a local MP. She had been an exchange student, and also our membership chair, had also done exchange. Right. So we have now collected other members that have been Rotaractors before and have had exposure to Rotary. It's an interesting one because having a look at it, I remember us when we're sort of putting together a marketing strategy going, do we target individuals that have had that exposure prior to, so they're aware of the organisation? Or do we, take on the cold leads and just introduce them to it? And we decided to go with introducing members to Rotary.
Was there a particular rationale for you deciding to take that approach?
I think that it was easier for us to market our club's intentions rather than to have had the stain of what the perception of the organisation would be to those individuals, especially because we were focusing on that demographic. And I just want to clarify again, because sometimes I get a little slap on the wrist because it's all about, the younger demographic. I'm very passionate about the fact that this organisation is absolutely amazing, but the majority of individuals I meet are retired, and they're not enough individuals that are still, charging through their career path, entering into this organisation to create the change that many of you have over so many years. And without, being a little bit more blunt about it, we're not really going to get anywhere. And this is why I always get a slap on the wrist, because it's not that I'm not inclusive. I think that it's absolutely beautiful. And I have learned so much from Rotarians that have been in the space for a long time. But also, if I can speak openly, there are a lot of people that have been a part of the organisation for a long time that have built their entire life around this organisation. And when they have had disruptions to friendships, or there's been an issue in the club, or, they've got divorced from someone that's now in another club, there can be a little bit of bitterness. And I think that becomes quite dangerous for clubs that are trying to attract a younger demographic, because, we generally have very busy lives and we have a policy of no drama. Like we don't entertain it. And I would say more so in this space of, individuals that are really focused on doing good in the world and are looking at positive impact. They're not in that space of, gossip and this person's done that. Like they're not interested. And that can actually come across as a negative. And I've seen it in quite a lot of clubs, to be honest. So for us, it was a case of, do we want to try and, navigate individuals that have had that exposure rather than others that have not? No, not really. There are clubs that are introduced for that, trying to attract individuals that have been, Rotaract that haven't converted into Rotary. and now, the sort of the age thing has mumbled that all together. But, they've already got that exposure. If they were that keen, they would have joined.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not in a position to force people. It might be a case that they just want to have a break.
Right. Okay, thanks. Thanks for that, Candice.
Thanks, Elaine. Thanks, Candice. Graham Hooper, regarding key drivers.
Yeah, thanks, Kira. Candice, in terms of your core members of your club, how many actually are the drivers in terms of, obviously you're doing project management and certainly the administration of getting the club up and running and membership. And I suppose also as part of that question is how many are real extroverts and early adapters to doing things differently rather than just being followers?
Okay, I'll go with your last question. So the 99% of our club members are adapters, and I'm not exaggerating. I have formed and led that club with a pretty big, disruptive, risk-taking type personality. So that's who we've attracted. We also market to people that are change makers and are, freelancing entrepreneurs. So they're in that early stage of the hustle. So they have that within their personality. They want to do better. They want to find better technology. They want to be more effective and more efficient. So it's within our, ideal customer, if you like, in this club that we look for. In terms of key players and leaders, so give you a little rundown. So as I said earlier, our club, obviously, we have a board, right? Like we all have to do. But I navigated our club, I think it was at the end of our first year, realizing that there was too many chiefs, not enough Indians, too many Indians, not enough chiefs. And it was just it was me. I was the chief and I was the Indians. And what I decided to do was to reposition the club a little bit. Our board, it would sit that the president would sit as a leader, but I'm a big believer from leading from behind. So they were there to navigate. We would have the board, very important, but we also broke the club up into committees. So they're also known as pods in the business world. So each member that joined would need to put their hand up to be a part of a smaller committee. So they were part of the club and then they were part of a committee. And each committee or each pod has a chair. And those I'll break them down so you have a better understanding. So we have foundation as one. So there's 2 or 3 people in foundation. They are in charge of all things foundation. We have 2 people in admin plus the president. They're in charge of all the admin. And that's admin of projects. That's admin of all the bits and pieces. Then we have social media and PR. So we have 3 or 4 people in there, including a photographer, a videographer. We've got a chair of that who marks off, all the social media content, that it is branded correctly, it's got the right message, when it's to be posted, etc. We have membership. So there's 3 people in there that are all in charge of membership. Again, there is a chair of all of these. And then we have international service and fundraising. So the club as a whole will agree on we also have youth. There is, the club will agree as a whole to work on maybe one big project, and then the committees amongst themselves will all contribute like a working bee. So it starts, from the idea. The idea is then developed by whichever committee it's most relevant. So whether it's International Service Foundation or youth in our case are the main ones. And then they will get plotted along. So then we introduce social media. So we'll have a chat to the chair of social media saying, we're working on, for example, we're working on a project at the moment, Bali Water Project, distributing water filters, but we're fundraising for them. And we basically asking people to donate $25 to purchase 1 water filter. Very simple project, but it's developed by International Service that do all the liaising with the organisation we're working with in Bali. We then introduce social media into that to create a campaign or PR, and then we have a chat to fundraising about what events we could run. So we're just sort of reaching out to the committees. They all have a chair, so that's the person in charge, making sure that all the individuals in that committee are being included and are being active. And then when we get to our meeting, they will then, I suppose, if you like, pitch to the board, pitch to the club, letting them know what's happening. So there's always actions being taken. And we use a project management software called Trello, which is free.
Yep.
And we use that for all of our project management. And all the members of the club actually have access to the entire board, but it is segmented for the committees, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
Yeah. So they have access. So if they want to know what each committee is doing, they can just flick between it. Occasionally I do it on a Friday night with a glass of wine, and I wonder what everyone's working on. That's how exciting my life is. And if they've got any comments or if they've got any feedback, that they can pop it in there. It also allows us to tag individuals. So instead of calling or messaging, we're tagging people, and it just sends them a notification saying, hey, Candice has asked, when you get an opportunity, do you know the name of that wine company down the road that you like so much? Because we're looking at pitching them for free wine for an event. So
thanks, Candice. Thanks, Graham.
Thank you. Yeah.
Adrian Roach has a question about the social aspect of the club.
Yep, cool.
Candice, I'm really enjoying your presentation. It's interesting to hear all about your club, and yes, having that mentor in Andy Rajapaksa, you couldn't have gone wrong, could you? So my question was about meeting once a month.
Yep.
And do you meet socially outside this meeting? Do you get to see enough of the club members, only seeing them once a month? I mean, some of my club members once a month would be probably plenty, but there's others I'd probably like to see more frequently. Comment on that.
So our official meeting is once a month. And then we have another meeting that's the fortnight after that, which is generally on the weekend, unless there's something in particular that people wanted to see that was on a weekday. And that is a social activity for all club members, including their partners and family. And we keep it very active. So it's usually activities. We started off by doing a cafe, but then obviously we didn't want individuals to be incurring a further cost if they weren't in a position to. So we started to introduce activities like hiking, playing cricket on the beach. We just did beach volleyball on Saturday, which was interesting. And then we've had, individuals. One of our membership chair has a boat, so he's taking people out on the boat and the jet ski for the day. We've done fun runs, tough mudders, activities that are out there for the community. We'll introduce into our social activities. If it's a really busy month for people and most individuals are going, hey, we've got a lot on this month, we'll do it as a walk on the beach or, a coffee catch up. Definitely, I see most of the members in our club more than I see my own family, to be honest. There's also an element that there is probably 5% of our club are not working with someone else in the club. So most of the individuals have probably buddied with somebody for their career or socially, whether that's to play golf or soccer or netball, or come together for collaborations in business. So we also have two platforms for communication. One's Facebook and the other one is WhatsApp, and they are busy all day long. And it's not only things with regards to Rotary. Sometimes it will be the case of, hey, does anyone want to get a coffee this morning? I'm meeting in Burleigh Heads. Does anyone want to join me for, a boot camp on Thursday morning? I definitely always say no to that one. And then it might be the case of, I'm looking at painting the house. Does anybody have a painter that might be able to recommend? So the club's really interactive in terms of utilising those communication platforms to build social relationships, and we encourage it. So when I first started, I actually created my own personal campaign within that I would just list random questions for people, like what book to read, what podcast have you listened to this week, because I wanted to keep the traction going. And it's got to a stage now where it's self-sustaining.
Wow.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Candice. Dave Harmon, who I believe is the membership chair for your own district, Candice, has a question for you about the types of projects that engage your members. So Dave Harmon, if you could switch your mic on, please, and put your question.
Thanks, Kiro. Great to see you again. Hi, Candice.
Hi, Dave. How you going?
Good, thank you. Thought it'd be interesting just to share with us latest research tells us all that the best way to engage millennials and Generation Y, under 40s, is social justice or environmental causes.
Mm-hmm.
So is that a fair reflection of your club and the projects that you're engaged with?
Definitely. I think it's an interesting thing because, yes, there are subjects that are appealing to that demographic, but I think it's also subjects that are really gaining traction worldwide. So I did this as my own research because I was very curious whether we were going to take on these causes and they were only going to be trends, and that we would create all these campaigns and a movement around things, and then they wouldn't be sustainable because, it was like flared pants. They only lasted so long and then they're out the window. Lucky for some, they've come back in. But, we wanted to make sure that, projects that we were going to work on had legs and they were going to be there for a while. It's been interesting. Each year we do a survey in the beginning of the year for the club members, and we stick these posters on the wall, which we've designed, and we keep it interactive because we have also noticed that by emailing people a survey, we won't get any answers, just crickets. So we do it in the meeting and we ask people what they're interested in. So, one is showcasing the Sustainable Development Goals and educating them on what that looks like and what possible projects might be a part of, giving them indication of local organisations that have reached out to us or that we've become aware of. And we do that by third parties, and then obviously introducing other Rotarians that are part of organisations or their clubs are part of organisations. And then just asking them the question, what they're interested in. Big one lately has definitely been domestic violence. There's been a lot of media traction, obviously, on this subject, and there's, a funding in places. And Dave, you'll know this, that, a number of our members have recently participated in the Love Bites training, one of your main causes. Which is an education for a younger demographic around what is a respectful relationship. And I think these types of things, those types of things that really have affected not only our club members, but someone very close to them in such a way that you just can't ignore, definitely have been things that the club has been moving more so towards, rather than, we started off with one that was like animals. That didn't last very long. Everyone loves animals. Most of the members have animals, but it wasn't something that got traction. We're very lucky in our local area that there's been more cause-based clubs that are now focused on that. Definitely social justice as a whole and environment have been really big ones. But in terms of environment, we've seen a shift in the club. When we first started focusing on environment, we're doing a lot of beach cleans. We've now realised that our local council is very good at doing that, and they quickly just became a breakfast meetup because they weren't out there for very long. And then we tried to move beach, and then it got too far for people. We still do them, actually. We did one on Saturday, but there's just not a lot to collect. So we started to have, we had to pivot. We were focused on environment. We started to pivot. Now we're focused more on tree planting, and they love that because we found an organisation that we can work with that treats the club as a family, and we're really working closely with that organisation. It's just in Talabudra, not very far from the area. And we go out tree planting. They teach the club about urban foraging because they run permaculture courses on that property. And then they give them a really beautiful vegan meal at the end, and they're being educated. So again, it's that teaching the individuals, and rather than getting these cleanup packages from Cleanup Australia, sending them out into the scorching sun, telling them we'll buy you a coffee at the end. or you can hang out. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting one. I think with environment, we've had to pivot quite a few times. So, but social justice is definitely, social justice and homelessness is one that is still, they still get a lot of traction within the club. And I think, I think club focuses, I don't know, I'm originally I was really strict on the fact that we would change every year. And then it got to the second year and I realized that I have to start all the internal process again. So maybe we would just pivot on how we would approach the subjects and what projects we would actually work on in what capacity. I think really just having open communication with the club and sort of being a little bit more blunt around, what do you want to, what project would you like the club to be working on? What would you like to be involved in? And in what capacity? And then really getting a really good indication, because we are working on a project now that everybody was really interested in the beginning, and now it's just me. And now I'm the one pushing it forward. And in the beginning, the capacity was, yep, you will do this and we'll do that. But I suppose because and I know where the downfall is, I didn't check in at the sort of 6-month mark. I just kept it rolling, that I didn't check in with them whether they were still interested in it, because we are, we get humans and they get bored quickly. They're like, got to change it up. That I can now see the change. So I suppose it is just about the open communication around what people are interested at that time.
Yeah.
It seems bizarre, but it's just what I've come to learn. I don't think you can be focused on one project and expect that project's going to have legs for 2 or 3 years. Maybe just doing the smaller ones is the way forward.
Thanks heaps, Candice.
Thanks, Candice. Thanks, Dave. Candice, when we started, I said that we would go for a maximum of an hour. We've almost exhausted the hour, but there's a question that I really love to ask champion club builders, and I think you're well and truly in that category. Candice Olivier, why are you a Rotarian?
I am a Rotarian because I have a very deep desire to positively impact the next generation before us and give an opportunity to individuals that have not yet had the experience to be empowered to know that they have the courage and determination it takes to positively impact the lives of others.
Super. Thank you, Candice. Let's have a round of applause for Candice for a job really, really well done. Thank you, Candice. That was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Dear audience, thank you for being in tonight. I realise the timing with daylight saving and all that sort of stuff has kind of stretched things a bit. I think it's 10 o'clock and we started at 10 o'clock in New Zealand, so it's great to have significant numbers in from New Zealand. And so thank you for being with us, everyone, and good night.
Good night, Kira. Nice seeing you, Adrian, Dave.